Is that any good?
I've not played it actually. I mean, I've heard mixed things. Like, obviously, it's like very ambitious, wasn't it? Right. So there was that. I mean, it was a very ambitious game, but it seemed like, from what people were saying, it was sort of almost like, well, it had a lot of problems, didn't it, with the development life cycle and just the bugs. That was the main thing, wasn't it? Really, people thought it was too buggy to be really enjoyable. And I think the AI was a bit off, but I've not really played it, so I can't really fully judge it. I think aesthetically and visuals wise, it looked freaking awesome. But
fair enough. I'm looking for new games to buy because it's kind of like, if I don't
just go Elysium, honestly, mate.
You're like this. Okay, you're definitely the third person to say this. I'm gonna just do it. I'm gonna buy it. But
you'll love it. It's such a good game. I mean, I sort of went into it blind. I liked it on Facebook because it looked interesting for a while, and then I actually went and bought it, and it was yeah, really like, it's, you know, like games like Fallout when you first play this, or Half-Life. Yeah, it was sort of one of those moments for me where I was just like, this is the best thing I've played for literally 5 years or something.
Yeah. I'll give it a try. I'll wait till it goes on like half price sale.
You can replay it a lot. I mean, it's got quite a lot of RPG elements, so you can really customize your character, but it hasn't. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of politics in it actually as well, which is interesting. So you can make, it's like got this political vision quests in it, and yeah, it's just a lot of depth to it, and the voice acting is fantastic, and yeah, I basically can't praise it enough. It is pretty much the most immersive game I've played for a long time. Okay, well, I guess I'll showcase the project that I'm working on.
What is this thing that I'm looking at here? Because it looks interesting.
I think you'll find this interesting. So this is in Play Canvas. It's a project called Nexus Necronomicon, which is, I mean, basically I'm using Play Canvas, which is like a JavaScript WebGL engine. It's got a cloud editor, so this is all in the cloud. And essentially what I want to build is a sort of interactive fiction game with obviously with environments and 3D, and also it's going to be web-based as well. So I think I'm just still trying to work that out a minute. I might release it as web-based on itch.io and also as an executable, just package it up and that. But the setting of it is, so I'm still trying, I've got a rough idea in my head and the source material, so I'll just talk about that a bit. So the source material is right here, actually. So it's a book from Lovecraftian lore called the Necronomicon. That's the sort of source I've selected for the story element. Now, this is a very interesting book. It's basically a fictional grimoire, so it's like it's a black magic book, basically.
Yes.
But it's not real. It's basically a fictional creation of H.P. Lovecraft, the horror writer. And I basically wanted to craft some sort of like sci-fi narrative around the idea of, you know, black magic, but also related to technology too. So this area which I'm working on at the minute, and there are a lot of story things need to work out as well, of course, but this area at the minute is essentially where you come in. So I think the story idea I have at the minute, because it's changing quite a lot, is basically you're some sort of demon. You've been summoned by this lady, who I'm not exactly sure who she is yet. It's just sort of rough character design stuff. You're summoned by this woman, and obviously the dialogue and stuff needs any work done on it really anymore. It's just environment design in a minute. But the rough idea is that you're going to be summoned by this woman. She's used this black magic book to summon you. So you're going to be a sort of probably a relatively chaotic, neutral, or evil character, even, to be honest, which I've always found kind of interesting in games. But I don't know, I've not really exactly worked out how that's going to work yet. And then this is basically the first area you what the word be, you emerge into. I don't know, it's not the best word, but and then there is a second area I'm just working on still, which is sort of very early days in this one. This is like the external of the church. It doesn't look very good at the minute. It looks sort of whack. It's just loading some models up, and I'm just sort of working. There's this character Overmind, so there's going to be like a sort of Orwellian dystopian element to it. So yeah, there's going to be some sort of this weird techno demonic dictator, and yeah, at the minute I'm just sort of like done some poster designs. So
It gives me that like a Half-Life 2 vibe where you just walk out and you see
Yeah,
Is it Edward Brain?
yeah.
Welcome.
The professor guy with the who looks a
Yeah,
bit like
welcome to City 17.
someone said he looks like Jeremy Corbyn. Actually, one of the Peace and Justice Initiative.
I can see that a bit.
Yeah, but like, yeah. So that's sort of like, it's a dystopic, partially wasteland, partially ex-Soviet bloc sort of vibe. So, but I'm still trying to work that out, obviously, because this is obviously not a finished area. It's just sort of prototyping stuff at the minute. But yeah, I mean that's where it's at the minute. Yeah.
Yeah. These models here, these are own, or these are default prefabs?
So these trees are just downloading. I mean, a lot of the assets I'm just downloading. Like, to be honest, I'm not really a 3D modeler. I can do bits and bobs of it.
Yeah,
I mean, I might even replace a lot of them, to be honest. Like, obviously, the mountains are just found online, like sort of royalty.
I thought the kind of the graphical kind of setup is kind of like the last stage of it. You kind of need to like get your story out and then get you need to get the balancing out, I feel.
Yeah, like I'm sort of trying to establish mood as a major thing. I want that to be a major factor, and I also want it to be immersive. I want it to have that wow factor, which obviously at the minute it doesn't. I'm sort of sketching out areas. It's very I mean, the church area interior look works. This does not work at all. I was like messing with it yesterday. It just looks like shite. I probably will have to get to the stage of getting someone who can model a little bit in. That would probably be good, but that'll be a later stage. I mean, to be honest, this is sort of like, I've envisioned this as my long-term project for maybe even a year. I mean, it usually takes quite a long time to, if you want to do it justice, to do something half decent, especially if you're working. So it's like, go on, Nat. You're going to say something, I think. Sorry.
So, hang on, let me turn up. I can hear you. It's just sometimes my volume's cutting out.
No worries. It's fine.
I haven't. Okay, so yeah, it's picking the right microphone, picking the right headphones, audio setting. There we go. I'm gonna max you out on my end because these are pretty whack headphones.
Once you got it all set up on Zoom, anyway, it's like sort of set for next time anyway.
Like
but then it still does annoying things like it'll select the wrong audio source and shit like that sometimes as well.
Yeah, Discord does that all the time.
Yeah.
Just tell me I'm underwater or something. I'm like, okay, so it's picking up like a microphone across the room.
Oh, I just realised there's a little person in this texture. I never realised that before. An old man. There's an old man in the window.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting. It's just a
I love that because if you find one, you'll probably find him again everywhere else.
Yeah, he'll be everywhere because it's the same texture.
That Luthian texture.
Generic comic block.
I do love how it's like in its early stage, it's just a cube.
Yeah,
that's classic, classic alpha development stuff. The Chad move.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this sort of area is sort of very early. I mean, I think in a way I sort of need to start doing the old-fashioned thing, get a pen and paper and sort of sketching out areas, characters, story. I'm writing the story right. I've drafted a very small, basic story outline anyway on a piece of paper, but it's just like one piece of A4. So I think I'm sort of like, because I've been working on this for quite a few hours the last few days, but I feel like I need to plan out the bits that need to be planned out. Like, and I don't want this to be too big a game. I want it to just be small, self-contained, and but polished. Like that's basically what I'm looking for eventually. Nothing like I don't want to spend like 5 years on it because it's going to be a free to play web game probably. So it's more just about doing a project that I'll learn from, improve my writing abilities, and everything really, the game design stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. Yeah,
that's good. I know, but right now I'm working on like a novel, so it's not much in the way of interactive, but it's more in the writing sense. But do
you want to share your screen actually? You can if you want, or
I don't really have much to share my screen on right now, to be honest. I'm just like right now I'm doodling. Like if we do this again anytime soon, I'll probably have more. Like right now I'm working on a novel, which is like
nice.
I keep that vague because I don't like talking about things I'm writing on because it makes it hard to write.
In process, yeah, of course.
Once you tell people, you kind of like it messes up your brain somehow.
Yeah, but, I understand that.
For this game idea I have, I'm working on both at the same time. I'm focusing on the novel. The game is my relaxing writing, which is kind of funny because you do hobbies to relax, but you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't have much in the way of concepts, so I kind of want to like be working on drawing concepts. The issue is though I can't draw.
What do you usually write about? I mean, just what sort of
write about in general. That's a weird one. I kind of. I think someone's come up the stairs. I don't think they know. I might have to mute myself from time to time.
Yeah, no, it's just there's no worries, man.
Writing stuff, I don't know. It's kind of like a mix. I never stick to one subject for too long. So right now, my current project is it's like an American Civil War-esque kind of story. That's the very vague of it. Meanwhile, that the game idea I have is like sci-fi kind of, not quite Lovecraftian horror, but it is kind of cosmic horror kind of sci-fi thing.
Yeah.
I always think it's cool. It's the gist of it is it's kind of like how do I explain it? Because I've never had to explain it in like very simple terms before. It's I explain it. It's like Dark Souls combat mechanics, but with guns meets Evangelion like boss fights. That makes sense. So it's kind of like is it boss brawler where your primary enemies are just bosses? I forget.
I'm not sure actually.
Cuphead is, like Cuphead is like it's only boss fights. You don't really get much in the way of minions. I don't know if you ever played Cuphead, but the gist is like it's large scale. How to explain it?
Sort of like Godzilla versus the big monsters or something like that.
Yeah, kind of like that. Except it's okay. If we host this call again, I'll find a way of summarizing this in really basic terms.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's like we're both.
We just it's not a professional thing. This is just two people sharing ideas, power, and getting back feedback. So the gist of it is. Sorry, I love how if you explain your basic idea, it just always sounds awful. You are a retired super soldier who's going across the world in a giant shipping container, in a giant shipping vessel.
Yeah.
And you have to stop these Evangelion-like monsters as soon as they land. And it's basically like a boss brawler. And it's got a large fusion of like Japanese and Greek cultural elements mixed into one.
Okay, interesting mix. More both, obviously. It's a lot of mythology from Japan, isn't there?
Like it's Greek in as much as like you're on an Odyssey. Like it's a lot of the monsters kind of take on like a kind of pseudo-Greek form, and the Japanese elements kind of come from the fact that a lot of the main cast are Japanese. It's a project spearheaded by the Japanese government in the law, and it follows this chain of events. It's a weird project to start with because it's part of like a deeper lore of stories I have, and this is like 4 stories deep. But I feel like it could work well as an independent piece because, like, if you just don't ask and don't tell, you can make a decent game out of it. If you start picking it apart, though, then I have to explain more.
Usually the best game ideas have got a little tinge of madness to them, right? I mean, there has to be that element sometimes.
I always say, but if you explaining everything away can sometimes be your downfall because, like, the air of mystery is also like what makes things interesting.
Yes, I mean, obviously, like, I mean, I understand what you mean because, like, if I had planned out a story, like even with an interactive fiction game like this, I wouldn't, share it with other people and spoil the big twist at the end or whatever, because it would be or one of the endings anyway, because it would just spoil the point of the game, wouldn't it? Playing it, no one would want to play it, I suppose. But so I guess it's more like just it's talking about the bricks, the core mechanics and all that sort of thing.
I'm not a pro writer or anything, but my kind of like one of my things I remember is I said you owe your audience what do you call it? You owe your audience logic, but you don't always owe them an explanation. You can just be like, this is what's happening. You can just accept it as what it is.
Yeah, I mean, because there's nothing worse than, I don't know, like reading some hard sci-fi and it's like 20 pages explaining how an engine works or something.
Oh yeah. Like, that's what I like. That's like Back to the Future, where he just like he never explains the purpose of like that weird engine he built. He just says it's like the engine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just more like, this is a cool idea. What if you could travel back and forward in time? What would the consequences be? What would the cause and effect be of having that sort of technology as opposed to this is exactly how it works? Because you don't want to read a technical manual. If you want to read a technical manual, it's fine, but if you want to read a story, you need the story, right? Cool. So what was was this tied in with like the interactive fiction?
So the reason is it's kind of like more interactive fiction, not so much interactive fiction, like gameplay wise, I want it to function like a game. I wanted it to have a kind of, not quite Mass Effect, but somewhat where you can decide your character's choices in as much as like, you can choose what they say, what they do. There's a level of customization. I also wanted to make it where like, there's a level of, yes, I wanted to make it so you kind of decide some of the aspects of what your character could do. And that's kind of where the interact. There's also like a large, well, at least I hope I intend for there to be, because it's you and a crew of a ship, I want it to be a bonding between you and your crew. And like that would have been what I consider the interactive function, is like you could choose to do missions for people. You could choose to talk to them, a lot like Mass Effect, I guess. But...
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Have you been looking into engines and what sort of technology you want to use to?
No, not at all. No, so far I'm just like sketching out the stories because I'll probably
give you a few tips on that actually, if you want, because I do have I've developed a few interactive fiction, Unreal Engine, and some other bits and bobs. I'll give you a few tips on that. So do you know? You probably have heard of this one. Do you know Twine?
No.
Okay, so Twine's pretty.
Is Twine a branching narrative?
Yeah. So it's sort of like a branch. But what I would say, obviously, if you probably want to create something that's a bit more ambitious than that, right? Like it's just basically with Twine, we create web pages with like where you.
I do, but like of anything, you should like work small, work your way up.
Yeah, actually, I would advise this because Twine is a great starting point because you don't even like I even literally taught kids Twine when I was an English teacher for a while, and basically. It's pretty easy, and you can even use it for prototyping. So if you wanted to prototype, for example, dialogue choices and where all those things lead, it's a very good tool for that because, essentially you just I'm gonna put it on here. I'll just look it up. It's pretty easy to use, and you can you can basically create those branching dialogues, and it's renders it out just as a HTML file with some CSS and that. So
bookmark this now. This actually looks useful.
Yeah, and it's free as well. So it's open source thing basically. So just these are some of these are like kids ones even. So I looked at this. I was using a most similar computer, wasn't I? So yeah, you've basically got. So I think this is one of actually the products that some of the kids worked on. I think when I was doing English teaching. So. Yeah, you basically, these are just HTML tags. It might look intimidating if you're not familiar with it, but basically for every time you put like the brackets around, so if you're this would be like the first node essentially, or the first dialogue that you open with. And then you can put brackets around these words, which will then create another node, which will give you another choice. So it's sort of like, it's basically like writing a choose your own adventure book, really.
Yeah. I see your point.
And this is so you'll get the hang of this. I don't know how. You must be techie because you've done game design and stuff, so you'll have some degree of technical knowledge, right? So
it's mostly fallen into disarray, but I still kind of remember some weird stuff. Because I used to know how to code at one point, but years ago.
You would have used Unity or something, right? And C#, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I've used both of them. Yeah.
Well, this is a piece of. It's very easy, basically, for compared to using something like Unity. It's just super simple. I think I should be able to play this or test it or something. I don't know. Test it, debug it. I don't know. Wait, why is it doing that? I'm just going. Why is it opening itself in itself? That's a bit odd. I don't want to do that. I'll share it somewhere. You can basically, you just create these nodes. Obviously, there's a lot more you can get into it. You can sort of do branching logic and add some variables and stuff, but it's not so hard really, and it's just a case of reading the docs. What I might advise is if you've got like a sort of bigger bigger project, maybe do something like really simple just with this first, just so you can get sort of used to the
definitely the concept.
Like even if it's like one of the games I created with the kids at camp was basically just like I'll try and see if I can get it up. It might be on it still. I just need to
like this is a large scale project of mine, but like I know what it is. I want to sketch it out, get it planned out, and then probably back burner it for other projects on a much smaller scale. I just don't like having ideas and then like leaving them in my head. I'd rather just write them out and then just leave them on paper somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, Twine's a good one to look at. Obviously, there's Rempe as well, but I've used that a little bit.
Rempe.
It's a visual novel, and so it's more. So the visual novels are a bit more like, it's still interactive fiction, but it's sort of a bit more like a comic book style, if you know what I mean. A lot of like anime stuff, obviously, but you don't have.
It always turns into anime in the end, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I like anime, but I'm not particularly fond of this sort of cutesy shit, to be honest.
No, I get your point, yeah. That's I've read the Doki Doki Literature Club. Oh my god, my friend tried to get me into that. Did you ever play that game?
No. I think I've heard about it. No, I think I've heard
it like did the rounds when it came out, and then it was kind of like forgotten about.
Doku something. Yeah, someone mentioned it to me a while ago. I mean, I don't tend to like the cutesy IF. I'm more like the science fiction oddness.
I'll bookmark this. I'll give both of these a try because I'm on like I do need to get out and find these things I feel.
Well, yeah, I mean, like
it's also like I've got like comic. I've got ideas for every kind of genre, so like I can just test it with new things.
I mean, to be honest, I'll show you quickly some. Like I've just done a bunch of things. Most of the first IF projects I did there were just on with Twine. Most of the ones I've done have been Twine. So that was Twine. Was the first proper one I made, really. That was I did a few with Unreal Engine, but if I want to I find actually doing, because I've been doing game dev for a while now, just indie and stuff, but I find if I'm stuck with this big thing I have in my head, just doing a really small project, like a Twine project, really helps to just consolidate ideas, and it's just, it just keeps me active doing it. Like the last thing I actually did was, finished thing was this, which is like a web vampire game, basically.
This is yours?
This is built on Twine. Yeah, I'll quickly show you the trailer. We can probably play it a bit if you want. So this is a
because I've only ever made like one visual novel story, and I think it's somewhere on Newgrounds, but it was absolutely awful.
Yeah,
I had to do it for college, but like it came out. It's awful, but it came out all right for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% happy with this one. So I made this while I was so basically not long ago I was in Russia at a camp, and I just did this in my spare time teaching. That's why I was teaching English, and it's just like I wanted to. So then there is a level of RPG elements in this game. Sort of like you can sort of, there's like I think 15 different endings, and it's a bit more custom. So this is with Twine. It's with the new. I'll send it. I'll let. So there's I don't want to bombard you with too much stuff, but Chapbook is one of the. There's basically different formats in Twine, which are different ways of like publishing, presenting it in the out. Like the final thing is, and Chapbook's one of the newer ones, and it's quite fun, and so maybe bookmark that as well. I suppose this is quite a good one, and you can sort of create more like RPG elements a bit easier than on the older ones, I suppose. So, but yeah, anyway, so like you just put it like Chris, and it's a bit. So yeah, it's like a sort of classic choose your own, choose what you do thing. But there's also like some RPG elements because you've got strength and the blood level and money and this sort of thing. And there's also morality. So basically, whenever you end the game, you get a sort of I'll show you what I mean. I'll just get killed really fast or something. I'll just go to an ending. So I think there's like 15 different endings. Just I have to remember all the branches. So okay, blah blah blah. I think so. There we go. So I'm insane. I've been locked up. That's one of the endings.
Very nice.
And then it's got like ending stats at the end. So this is a bit more experimental using Twine for me anyway. So strength, kills, and it basically gives you morality, and there's a few different like outcomes you can get. So that was quite fun because it sort of meant that I could play through this literally 20 times now, and the final like vampire that I am would be different sort of every time.
Yeah.
So it's like a short game, but there's like, I mean, it's like classic interactive fiction, right? I guess there's a system that's driving it, and also the variables, if you will, or the certain things that you do will obviously affect things later on. Like, and I think I'm not sure if I've actually got the Twine original file. I might be able to get it. I think it's on my laptop, but it's like the most. Even though this doesn't look like loads on the surface, this is pretty much the most complicated Twine game I created in terms of the actual nodes, and it was like a crazy map like this, really. But yeah, so I'd suggest try and make a small game in Twine, just something simple, even if it's just like I don't know, like some goblin adventure, cave adventure, or something like this, like something classic.
No, I like your first one. I want to do goblin adventure. That sounds so good.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, goblin cave adventures is always good. I mean, I think the example one I made for the kids ages ago was like, so in Russia they have this thing, Baba Yaga, which is like
the witch that lives in a giant cauldron.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like a witch basically, and so I made a game of the Baba Yaga, and you just meet her, and several different options. It's all a bit silly, but it's for kids. But yeah, it gets really addictive actually. Twine after you get into it, because I mean, once you get the hang of it, it's not so tough to really figure out how it works. Really, to be honest. I mean, these are like so this website is the Russian kids. So these are like actual games that some of these Russian kids made actually.
Recoleto.
Yeah, Recolata.
Damn it.
So yeah, I was a teacher there for 3 years. I was doing these IF teaching lessons. It's very fun actually. It's great fun. So yeah, I did it for like 3 years. That's just as archives going back to 2019. We also did some in CopyCube, which is like a really basic 3D engine, but it's very, very bad, that one. I mean, it's not bad, like, but no, I mean it is a bit, but like as a game overall. But
would you recommend as a 3D engine? Because you mentioned UDK.
Obviously, Unity is great. Everyone, that's good. It's multi-platform. Unreal Engine is good.
I guess I'd have to relearn Unity, but I guess I could.
Yeah, Unreal Engine actually, surprisingly enough, I know it sounds intimidating, but if you're just doing, so I did make an interactive fiction. I made 2 interactive fiction games actually in Unreal Engine. I'll quickly show you. And they only took 3 days. They were jam games. So do you know, you probably do know Ludum Dare game jams, so one of the biggest game jams.
Say what again?
Ludum Dare game jam.
No. I know of a game jam, but I've never heard of that specific one.
Ludum Dare is basically it's a massive game jam basically. So you 3 days and you've got to make a game on a certain theme. And so yeah, for these I made 2 interactive fiction products which are done on Unreal Engine using during that game jam. So this is one of them. It's a vampire game actually as well. So I did the environments. I just used asset packs, so obviously 3 days and not a lot of time to create an entire like city models and stuff. But it's got like basic dialogue options, and it's basically the concept of this one is that you just you're like a slave of a vampire, and you have to choose the victim for the vampires. It's all about who you're going to choose to kill and what will the outcome be of that. So it's like 7 different endings or something based on who you choose. Just simple concept, but so it's like sort of an experiment in stepping stone using Unreal Engine more. The dialogue system wasn't so hard to implement. It's basically just like from what I remember, and you can also use an Unreal Engine, you can use blueprints. So you don't necessarily have to do C++ programming. And blueprints is basically a sort of visual programming. So it's like, again, it's sort of like node based. I mean, you do have to, it's still conceptually programming, but it's not as hard as programming was in a way, really. You don't have to do like C++ programming. And if you want to make a small game, honestly, it's fine to use it. It's not a big deal. There's not, I don't think there's not a huge, you can probably optimize it more, obviously, if you program with C++, but if you're making just a simple dialogue based game, it's not really going to be a huge overhead, I guess. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah.
And Unreal Engine's free. You don't have to pay for it, I guess. So you don't actually have to pay for it, and it's free and it's powerful. So Unity is good as well, but I'm not as familiar with Unity. I've made a few very small things on it, but nothing major. And Unreal Engine actually is just so fun to play with. You'll just get addicted to it because it's the landscape tools, and there's so many different things you can do with it. So I know I've bombarded you with a lot of tips and stuff there, but I hope that's pointing in a direction, I suppose. Feel free to ask me about anything, by the way. I don't know if you're on Twitter, just send me a Twitter later or whatever. I'll give you some...
No, I don't have a Twitter right now, no. Well, I don't really have one that I use.
Fair enough. But I can send on, I guess, through Meetup anyway, kind of a list of links and things.
I have Discord, but that's kind of...
I'm on Discord, that's cool. I can add it on there. I use Discord quite a lot now, actually, so...
I use it all the time now. I use it since it basically... I used it since it came out, to be honest, because Skype was like the main thing at the time, and it was so bad when it was kind of...
Yeah.
It's just memory hogging.
Yeah, Discord's great, really. Oh, my head's popped off. Look at that. Strange. I'm just wondering why a head's just popped off on the screen. It's very odd. I don't forget how it happens. I've even got some basic animations playing. But okay. Is there any? I guess we can go on. Probably go on for a bit longer. Unless is there anything else I don't know you want to talk about or like ask?
No, not particularly. You gave me a lot of resources.
Good.
We shared ideas. I don't have much in the way of physical work to show you, so I can't really go on about my own idea yet. But in good time.
That's a little start, isn't it? I mean, like I said, I've been working on this one for about a month, and it's still in a really rough stage. Just sort of. Play Canvas can be good actually as well. The engine I'm using here, but you do sort of have to pay for it to get anything out of it, and you'll need to know JavaScript basically, because JavaScript is the main programming language in it. But it's quite fun. But you can mess around on this one for free, but you only get like limited storage with the with the free account.
Which is called again? Play Canvas. It rings a bell, but it may.
It's a UK-based company actually. They're UK. I think they were acquired recently by I can't remember who, but some big company, maybe even Snapchat, I think, or something like that. I'm sure I read that.
I vaguely remember this. I might be misremembering this for something I saw back in secondary school, but that would have been like decades ago.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty cool tool, really. I mean, this is all running in my browser. It's just WebGL, and I've never used
3D stuff with HTML before. I should give this a try too. Because I used to make a lot of smaller game projects. I used to do it in Construct 2, which is like
Construct 2 I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's only 2D, but Construct 2 is like the greatest way of getting into things because it gives you the fundamentals and it doesn't require code, and you can just kind of like
and prototype something. I've heard of Construct 2, but I never messed with it so much.
And I had to use it for early college because that's what they mainly used, and it worked. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I used to use it for like I'd put basic concepts and run them through that before I bothered actually trying to hard code anything for real in like another engine. So it's just basically use it as a time saver. Yeah. Where do you get your models from? Do you get them from Turbo Squid?
I made this one. So this one is it's just using this software called Fuse, which is sort of like, it's a weird method actually I use, because basically I use Fuse because these are just basic, like they don't have to be like high-end models, right? Not like really high-end, it's just running on the web. So I use this program called Fuse, which you can just get on Steam for free now. I mean, it's sort of abandoned where because Adobe originally were I think, had ownership of it, and now it's like sort of discontinued because still like it's like sort of click and create like a basic character, and then you go onto this website Mixamo, and you can like auto rig it, which is useful because rigging is a fucking nightmare, and I can barely do it. I hate rigging. I just never got. I did a 3D course ages ago, and it was a nightmare. It was absolutely a nightmare doing rigging and that. So, but you can sort of like basically with this Mixamo and Fuse, you can. So yeah, it's like literally you choose a head. You can customize it later on. So it's for like web games like this. It's pretty simple, really.
I see.
So that's the sort of, and then you just got this library of. So if I think I've got a character already maybe done it. You just like upload the model, so whatever format it would be, and then from Fuse, and then you just rig it with these animations basically, and like you have to like select where's the wrist or the elbow, and it just auto rigs them, and then you can just export them out as FBX, I guess, and then just apply the animations to the model. So yeah, that's how I approach it. That took me a while to work out though. They just recently changed the animations, how the animation system works on Play Canvas. So I just sort of had to, where are you? I had to really figure out how to do that. Yeah, so it took me a while to figure out just like the autoplay animations. Yeah, I worked out eventually somehow. I can't remember how because basically it used to just be like you add your model, then add your animation, but they've changed it a bit now, which I think it's probably better, but I've not had enough time to really look into the state graph.
Yeah, that's the only one thing where they always make things better. They make them better in theory, but like at the same time, you get used to a certain pattern. You don't want that changing.
Yeah, that's half. A lot of the time with using these tools is just keeping up with. Unreal Engine as well.
So I used to use Maya because that's what I used in college, and I hate them for that because Maya costs like it's not freeware. Blender's better, and it's free, and like it's so similar. It's so similar, but just slightly inverted, and it bothered me to no end.
I'm not really a 3D modeler, but I think I used what's the other one? Not Maya, the other one that's sort of expensive and
3D Max.
Yeah, 3D Max. That was it. I think. Yeah. I sort of started to get used to using that, but I don't know. It's like 3D. I think in a way, like learning 3D modeling is sort of like learning programming. You have to really dedicate a lot of time to it, I think.
Oh no, it's insane. It's depressing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I've never I've got Blender, but you mostly use it for optimizing or doing random things you need to do with models to download, but basically something I'd probably use it to make. Something I'd probably like to do is like probably like to find a 3D modeler to work with. Actually, that'd be good. But obviously, if you're working with a 3D modeler, they have to be paid for their assets. It's not really fair not to do that, I don't think. So I have to figure out a way of doing that, I suppose, properly, really.
That's the step up. That's kind of like the killing point.
Yeah, I'm just about to start a new job actually tomorrow. Doing programming and sort of augmented reality development actually. But so I'm going to be back on like normal full-time hours. So this is going to be my evening pursuit, as it were, just working on this.
This is your relaxing coding as opposed to your working kind.
Yeah. There's not much code in this actually. I think it's literally just one script, which. Yeah, well, I suppose there's the player controller, but that's just a generic one. There's like it's just like literally all this does is rotates whatever mesh or entity selected 360, and that's all it does. Not much. And then not much on air. What's the port pulse? Oh, it must be something I was messing about with and never got working, I guess. But yeah, I've not really approached the scripting. One of the major things I have to work out, because I've never done it before, so Play Canvas, is the dialogue system, how that's going to work. So probably something like a UI element that is hidden and displayed, and also probably the dialogue will probably be stored in JSON or something. But I just need to figure all that stuff out. I haven't got that far yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I need to read into it probably. So I'm sure someone must have done something similar to that on.
It's just going to be like with dialogue. It will be like what's it called? Multiple choice. Is that the kind of plan?
Yeah, yeah. I also need to
like
work out the interface as well, because you can either do like, I mean, you can do
like a Skyrim setup.
Yeah, so I need to figure out the best interface for it, because I did one on the Notion Nosferatu game, but it was a bit awkward because basically you had to press spacebar to get the mouse to come up and get in focus and then select. It was really awkward. I mean, I only had 3 days to do it as a game jam game, but I also need to select a better method than that. Probably something like it locks the screen when you go into the dialogue, and then you can just scroll up with the keyboard, I guess. That sort of makes sense to me, and select the option with return, or maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4 for different options. But again, that's, I don't know. That's something I need to work out really. I mean, I'll probably look at how other games do it, I suppose. Yeah, that's the fun to come. That's probably going to be one of the most hardest coding parts, actually, to be honest. Apart from that, most of this, I mean, like I think I'm going to make this mostly. There'll probably be some scripted events where, you know, things happen when certain events get fired, but mostly it's going to be about the dialogue. I might even, if I can, get voice recordings. That would be pretty cool. It makes it a lot more immersive then, but depends how ambitious I go with it, I suppose. Look, at the one thing I'm trying to avoid with this project is go too crazy to the point where it's not achievable. You know, like,
yeah, that's the problem. Like, you have to have self-restraint.
Scoping's really important in games.
No, I have that problem because my current writing thing I'm working on, like, that was originally going to be a teenage fiction book. A teenage fiction is like at most 40,000 words, and the planning for this alone went into 40,000 words. So like, no, it's not that anymore.
It can become. It's. I mean, I'm a writer as well. Actually, like, I mean, as in like traditional fiction too. And I know what you mean. You can just get sort of scatterbrained sometimes and just lose some sort of focus, I suppose. And sometimes stories don't need to be long to be good, right? Like, they can be just done a bit. Like,
well, not necessarily, no. But like, the only problem with this one is like it has a lot of things happening in it. That's I try to keep it short, but there's just a lot of interactions.
Yeah, a lot to cover.
It got a bit out of hand.
Yeah, it turned into. Well, I mean, an epic's good actually. I mean, I do actually hugely respect those writers like, I don't know, like Tolkien or whatever, who can achieve those sort of epics but make it accessible. That's such a skill, really, to be honest.
Sometimes like his I'm trying to think. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is like it's an epic series, but I think like it's 600,000 words. So that's like what? That's trying to think of how to compare that. That's like 4 regular books. That's not bad. Well, it's 4. Yeah, it's 3 books. What am I saying? It's a trilogy. I'm trying to compare it to book count. It's already a book. But yeah, like the amount of content he fits into that is like just weird. And the amount of like way he goes into cross medium, like he just throws in poetry and then like this other stuff.
Little maps and stuff, and the book's like a whole world and a language too, wasn't it? I think he developed for that.
I had that with a story where there's a group of vagabond soldiers and they have a song, and for the song it just cuts to like sheet music. So like if you bring out your piano, you could play the song.
No, it was amazing the amount of detail he put into the world, really, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, like, because in terms of like with my background in writing, like I actually really started off writing poetry really when I was like 19 or something. I'm 35 now, and like for prose writing, I've only just really started getting into that in the last, like properly getting into it in the last, I've taken it more seriously in the last 5 years really. Before that, I was just like, I mean, I had some aspirations to write, but never really loads. Like I've got a short stories collection actually. I'll show you it quickly because I've got one copy of it here. So I've just been mostly doing like short stories. So just did this suicide by computation. Did it I finished it last year actually. But,
very nice.
So I've been doing a lot of like short stories, mostly like exploratory and experimental, I suppose, on some level. But I've really enjoyed doing them. Go on, sorry.
I've got know what to say. No, yeah, like I've been writing. I can't really say when I've been writing because you never really know when you started. I guess like my first thing I ever wrote, I was 10 years old, and I just didn't do anything for like another 10 years. So I've been on and off for like I've been consistently writing for like 3 and a bit years now.
Yeah,
I'd say I've got like a dozen short stories or so, but nothing. They're too vague and far apart and at different levels of competency that I can't really compile them in any way or shape. They're just like freestanding by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, well,
like,
I mean, maybe look at them and compile them into a collection. Because, like, I mean, when I did, I mean, like, basically, this is like the first like prose. I mean, I've released books before, but it's always like a mixture of like essays and like poetry. Yeah. It wasn't like stories, but I mean, I've like most of these had written over. Most of them were written in a year and a half, but a lot of them were like older stories that just redrafted and stuff. And you do find a way to like thematically link them all together. I mean, the underlying theme of this book is basically a few things really, but it's not just technological dystopia. It's sort of like about the duality of technology and how we can get lost in virtual worlds to the point where we sort of just sort of go into an oblivion of sorts. It's quite an interesting thing, actually. I'm sorry, I have therapy, right? Like I have a therapist I talk to every week. I'm not too nuts, but I do that quite regularly. And she said that she noticed that a lot of my stories are about this sort of lone individual who sort of ends up going into a sort of oblivion, which is sort of interesting because I never really recognized that in my own writing, but it was definitely there. So yeah, I mean, I guess my philosophy nowadays with all the art stuff and writing and everything is just like, once it gets to a certain point and it's sort of like I'm sort of happy with it, I'm going to just compile it together and put it out into the world and see what people think. And if people don't like it, that's fine. If people do, that's great. But I sort of just feel like you just have to get it out there and not be too precious about it, I suppose, you know.
No, that's fair. I find that with a lot of my definitely a lot of my older projects, a lot of them do have like the consistent trait of like it is typically like a single. I've got like two consistent traits: single protagonist and like the idea of something being endless. Typically, it's like endless spaces. I found that was a strange recurring theme.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What's that thing? Like Euclidean spaces. Have you ever heard about that? Like where they have non-Euclidean.
Non-Euclidean. That's actually like a thing that happens in. I have a story about a guy who gets lost in a mall, and like it's kind of like a giant non-Euclidean space, and it's just him by himself for like 30 years.
Yeah, amazing. I'll quickly boot up a video actually because I've seen these games right that people are making. It's proper mad.
Is that the guy who made the engine? Like he's explained that it uses like a weird fixed camera angle.
Probably. I'll try and find the one with the non-Euclidean pizza because that was hilarious. I saw it a while ago. I mean, there's these ones.
That first one's the one I saw. Yeah, I know. That one.
That's amazing. Yeah, Code Parade's genius. I'm sub to him on my other channel. But what was it? I probably can't find it. It's very deep. It's like non-Euclidean. It's amazing. I'm
curious now.
I think I've seen this one, the VR one. This one I think I've seen. This is quite interesting. I saw this ages ago, and you can sort of just walk to VR, I guess. But yeah, that one you mentioned at the top is amazing. I'm almost like this because
it's cool watching his breakdown of it because he just summarizes it in such a simple way. You're like, that's perfect how he thought of that.
Yeah, I mean I really want to learn more about this sort of thing because it's so interesting just how you use mathematics to sort of trick the eye essentially, isn't it? It's sort of it's amazing. Yeah, I do like in indie games in general where you get these sort of very cerebral games which just like unlike anything you've seen before. It's like, I don't know, like the first time you play Portal, it blows your mind. I'm still sort of, I love games that have that sort of effect on. I'm sure there's a non-Euclidean space game. I'm just trying to remember what it's called because it's amazing. I saw it about a year ago. Spaceship, space game. I'm trying to find that. Because that was really interesting. If I can remember what it was called.
Hey, you're subscribed to Cryo Chamber. We have the same taste in music.
Yes, I love Cryo Chamber. Yeah,
it's great. What's that one album called? I had one album I used for like a solid year. I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah.
I even put it in my blog. I put it in my blog at one point because it basically. Have you ever heard of Songs for an Empty World? It's like a 1 hour compilation.
Yeah, I think so. It rings a bell anyway.
Yeah, I used to.
I do know the TV screen, right?
No, it's a guy, white figure walking across a green forest.
Yeah.
It's like an hour long. Yeah, I listened to that. I used that for like a whole solid year while working on it. That actually inspired a project. So I looked at it and I was like, I want to write something about this. And I just evolved into I think it evolved into what is currently my biggest like written story, but not biggest. There's a weird like rule system I got, but it's the biggest story I've got so far.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this Euclidean thing now.
Yeah, this looks pretty interesting. I've not seen this one before. This one wasn't the one I was thinking of, but it looks also interesting. Yeah, no, it's the fractal thing. That's the fractal space game. It's just what's supposed to relate it, isn't it? But yeah, there's like fractal planets video space game. That's amazing. Fractal planet. It's one of those animations game. Okay. I'll maybe this one. A few of them now, I suppose, because people have seen these videos and tried to do it. Maybe it's something like this, I guess. But this probably isn't the one I was thinking of. Oh, it's like an FPS game. It's probably made on Unity, I suppose. Can't tell. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap up in a few minutes, but it's been great chatting to you, man. I'll stop recording now, I guess. It's just okay, the record. I'm still getting used to this bit. I'm not used to recording that much, really.